Hello, hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to the Unapologetic You podcast. Again, of course, with me, Kiana, your host and also your coach in being unapologetically yourself. I am so excited that you're here again, spending your time with me, that you dedicate a few moments of your day to tune into the Unapologetic You podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Well, thank you for me, but also thank you for you. Because if you're here, it means that I pulled you in somehow. That some of the content that I speak about relates to you. And I am really happy to be a guide on your journey, to support you in wherever it is that you want to go. Today, we're going to be talking about Valentine's Day as we just entered the month of February, and I'm actually really excited for everything that is about to come. Well, Valentine's Day isn't hard because you're single, or because your relationship isn't perfect, or maybe because you're behind in love. I personally think that Valentine's Day can be hard because we were taught that love is something to earn, to perform, and to prove, and especially on one specific day of the year. And every February 14th, that belief simply gets amplified. So, today I want to talk about what Valentine's Day is actually triggering and how to reclaim it in a way that has nothing at all to do with roses, romance, or being chosen. Because Valentine's Day gets blamed for a hell of a lot of things. Absolutely. For loneliness, for pressure, also for comparison, and that familiar tightness in the chest that says, something about me is missing. But here is the truth that I want to start with. Valentine's Day itself was never the problem. The problem is what we were taught to do with it. Because we were told to perform love, to prove our worth, to be chosen, desired, or validated. And even if that meant abandoning parts of ourselves in the process. And that conditioning runs deep. Oh, so deep. For some of us, this might look like forcing romance, overgiving, overfunctioning, over receiving as well. Also, convincing ourselves that if we were too easy, too cool, or too low maintenance, we'd be loved a little more because it just simplifies the whole scenario. For others, it might look like pretending not to care, calling it independence, calling it strength, while quietly bracing against the ache underneath. And for many, maybe for you, it looks like that silent, unspoken feeling of failure, like you're behind on something. Like everyone else got the memo of love, intimacy, sex, connection, and you just did not yet. Even if you're in a partnership, well, no matter whether you're in a partnership or whether you're single, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it just feels like you're behind. So, if Valentine's Day has ever felt heavy for you, I want you to hear this one clearly. Nothing has gone wrong. You are not broken, and you are definitely not late. What is painful, however, can be being asked year after year to measure your worth through somebody else's desire, to make your lovability conditional. And I personally just don't think that that is love. I think that is performance. So, what I want to do with this is that I want to offer you a different question this year. Because what if Valentine's Day wasn't about being wanted, but finally about meeting yourself honestly? Not at all in a polished bubble bath, affirmations on the mirror kind of way, even though this does sound good now that I'm speaking it out loud, but in a grounded, embodied, sometimes uncontrollable way. The kind of self meeting that asks you, what do I actually want? Where have I been negotiating myself down? Where do I say yes when my body is saying no? And where do I stay quiet to just keep the peace? Especially in intimacy, desire, and sex. Let's think about this. Let's think about this kind of self meeting rather than the polished, as I said, affirmations in the mirror kind of way. Because there is something we don't talk about enough. The way you relate to love on Valentine's Day is often a mirror for the way you relate to yourself all year long. Let this one sink in for a second. Because this is about your boundaries, it's about your desire, your capacity to receive, your willingness to be seen without editing yourself. And again, no matter whether you're single, partnered, dating, married, divorced, somewhere in between, or just somewhere completely different on the relationship spectrum, this work always begins with the relationship that you have with yourself. Always. If you've been following the Unapologetic You or me, Kiana van Deursen, for a longer time already, you know that I always speak about self-love, about putting yourself as your number one priority. Because only when you love yourself enough, that is also what you can radiate, and that is what you can expect for people to give back to you. Because if you don't feel safe being honest with yourself, it's also will be almost impossible to be honest with somebody else. If you do not trust your own desire, or you either abandon it or expect somebody else to rescue it. But it's really difficult if you don't even know what that desire is like, what it looks like, what it feels like. And if you have learned that love requires self betrayal, you'll keep choosing comfort over truth, even when it costs you your aliveness. And that is what we want to focus on here in the Unapologetic You. That aliveness, that fire within, that spark, just that feeling that sets your soul on fire. So, this is not about self love as a concept. This is about self trust. This is about self intimacy and about self responsibility. It's about being able to sit with yourself and say, this is what's true for me right now, and I'm not wrong for it. It's pretty radical, to be honest. It's disruptive. But honestly, it's also so deeply erotic. Because desire doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence. And when you stop performing love, something else becomes possible. You start to feel where your yes actually lives in your body already. You start to recognize where your no has been waiting to be honored, finally. But you also start to notice how often that you've been tolerating instead of choosing. And this is the part no one puts in a heart-shaped box. But this is where real intimacy begins. Intimacy begins with the self. It begins with you. So, if Valentine's Day has ever felt like a spotlight on what you don't have, I want you to gently reframe it as an invitation. An invitation to finally come home to yourself, to tell the truth, and not to punish yourself, but to free yourself, to stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's attention. And no, this doesn't mean closing yourself off to love. On the contrary, it means making space for a love that doesn't require you to disappear. And that love that can finally meet you. So, this whole self prioritization, becoming the unapologetic you, is a lot easier said than done. I know. And that's also why I am creating something that gently reframes Valentine's Day entirely. Something that invites depth instead of performance, honesty instead of comparison, and embodiment instead of pressure. Because, darling, this is not about fixing you. It is about remembering yourself. It's about this part of you that is feeling this quiet yes. This quiet yes as you're listening to this, as you're like, yes, Kiana, this is what I want, this is what I desire. Then please see this as a soft opening for yourself. See this as an invitation to unapologetic love. Unapologetic love towards you, because you are your number one priority, or you should be. Well, if you're listening to this episode on the day that it comes out, the 2nd of February, 2026. 2026 already, that's insane. Then that means that Valentine's Day is only 12 days away. And it also means that in my next podcast episode, I will be talking about what exactly I am working on to support you on this journey to totally reframe Valentine's Day, to focus on honesty instead of comparison. And that will be where we are going to stop performing love, because we will make anything possible, anything for us. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with me and the unapologetic you. I'll talk to you soon.